Hi guys and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be painting eucalyptus branches in a loose watercolour style. So I'm really looking forward to doing some expressive kind of leaf detail and some wet on wet action. So let's get started. Alright then guys, before we get started, as always, a quick run through of supplies. So I have my Winsor & Newton professional watercolour paints. So they are tube paints that I squeeze out and let them dry, and then I just reactivate them with water. Today we are going to be using Archer's watercolour paper. So this is 100% cotton, 300 GSM. So it's the 7 by 10 inch block, and it just means there's only a few sheets left, but it just means that the sides are glued down. So I don't have to tape it to anything. And then today we will be using the Princeton Aqua Elite round in a size 6. So that's the brush that we'll be using today. I also have a size 2 in case you want to do any thin lines. So painting watercolor eucalyptus is one of my absolute favorite things to do because it's so easy to do in a stylized way. So for the colours, there's lots of different ways you can do this, but you essentially want a green and a blue, and to mix it up quite dark. So I'm just going to get some of this old colour pushed out of the way on my palette. But let's use maybe a turquoise. So you want a kind of cool blue and then a yellowy green, so maybe olive green as well. Whatever blues and greens you've got, they make a nice combination. And you can see that gives us a good kind of mixed bluey green colour. That was a bit of hooker's green, but never mind, happy accidents. And then maybe some darker indigo. So anything you've got that's kind of a smoky grey or black or a deep blue, Prussian blue would be perfect. You're aiming for a kind of mixed blue-green colour in a deep tone. And then what we want is to add loads of water to keep it a really light value. So what we're going to do is imagine ourselves a stem up the centre. You can sketch it out with a pencil line if that's easier. I quite like to freestyle. And then what we want to do is pick a point at the top of the stem to do the top 2 leaves. And I like to do these as a little pair. So we're just going to paint 2 little leaf shapes, not quite touching. And in quite a light value as well. We don't want these to be too dark. Can you see that's a lovely smoky eucalyptus colour? And then we're going to go further down and paint another bigger pair. Okay, so these are just kind of, imagine them as circles, and then they have this like little pointy tip bit where they're going to meet our stem. So they're oval, circular shapes. One of the great things about eucalyptus is the fact that its leaves kind of sit at different angles, so you can almost paint any shape and it will look like a eucalyptus leaf. It's crazy. And then we're going to paint our third one, imagining that it's a leaf coming forward towards us, so it will cross the stem, and we can only see the front one because the back one is behind. So we're going to paint a sort of blob there. I like to bring it up to a corner on one side, and I like to make sure that it's not completely symmetrical. And then we're going to add our little wet on wet details. So some darker colour. You can also add a bit more, maybe indigo, and just drop it into the centre there. You can do around the bottom and the underneath, or maybe that top bit there where it would meet the stem. Just adding a bit of colour variation and detail in here. So I'm just adding a bit more colour, constantly changing it up for each leaf or pair of leaves. And just adding ourselves some variation in there. It's a bit of a puddle, so I'll just smush that around and see if we can get it to blend. If you don't want such a stark difference, you can also just create kind of a light difference and smooth it around. And if you don't want to have such huge kind of variation from very dark to very light. And then we just continue, maybe do another pair here. And what we're trying to do as we move down the stem is keep changing the shape of the leaf. So again, a little pair. And then what I like to do occasionally is break it up with a flat one. So that's almost just a brushstroke line at an angle, and we imagine that that is again a leaf kind of facing forward, but with the foreshortening we're just seeing a line of it. Don't worry if the whole like physics of it doesn't make sense. It sounds really weird, but it works really, really well. I'm just going to go over that because I didn't like how that was drying. And then because all of these have been kind of tear shaped, what I'm going to do is some really round ones. Picked up a bit of dust there, let's get that off. You can also let the leaves touch if you want them to bleed together. I think that's quite a nice effect. We'll do a pair of round ones. And after every couple of leaves or so, just stop and go back and add your wet on wet detail. You know, to the center, to the edges. Get a bit more turquoise in there for a bit of smokiness. You can also go back in and just add more water if you want one to be a bit lighter. And kind of lift up some of the paint. Oh dear, I'm a devil for splashing these. If you make these sorts of mistakes, it's as long as it's still wet, you can just drop some clean water on it and give it a smoosh around, and then pick it up with a bit of paper towel. Emphasis on the clean water there. It's not perfect, but it's certainly a lot better. It helps to have a clean paper towel as well while you're going. Oh, that one. But I do this all the time and it really isn't a big problem. There we go, that's a bit better. Made a sort of slightly blue area at the top, but never mind. Right, let's get these back darker again. More indigo, mix it in with a little bit of dark green. Okay, and then we're just keeping this going. So if we've got a lot of dark areas down here, you might want a much lighter one. And then sometimes maybe I'll pull the leaves down and then give it a partner that doesn't quite match. And I also like to use water and just connect it there. Maybe another big one towards the bottom. You can keep this going for as long as you like. You're, free to make as many leaves as possible. I think I'm going to stop there so I've got the same amount of space towards the kind of bottom and top. So we'll do some less wet on wet details here. A bit more indigo in there. And smush that around. You can also use this point while the leaves are still wet to just go back over any bits that maybe have a jagged edge and just give those a smooth out. And then lastly, we want to create our stem. So you want to basically go over and join any of them in the middle. You can use your smaller brush for this as well. I really like to touch the leaves with the stem and let it bleed in, but if you don't like that effect, you can always try and just not quite touch the leaves. Try and make your stem curve if you can. Really straight stems make them look really kind of unnatural. Pretty much everything in nature, especially plant-based, curves if you look at it closely. So the curvier you can make the stem, the better. And then you can finally go back in and do any tweaks that you want. If you want a bit more, maybe a bit more power in that one. Maybe one of those corners a bit bolder. And then you can simply build this out by, adding more stems. You can add one behind it that crosses over. You can build these out into very tall plants. You can also have little baby stems that come off with more kind of details on them. Little smaller stems like that. Once you've got the basics of this whole kind of pairs and then the odd one that kind of cuts across in front of the stem, then you're good to go. Pretty much any shape, as you can see, will stand in for a eucalyptus leaf. I'm just going to lengthen that a bit. But yeah, there are no rules when it comes to eucalyptus in this kind of semi-abstract style. It's anything goes for the shapes of it. But I hope that tactic will have you making your own amazing eucalyptus compositions. Okay, there we have it. It's so easy, right? Once you get the hang of doing the little leaf pairs, you can build this out into any kind of composition that you like. You can add multiple stems or little branches coming off. It's just such an easy technique to learn. So I hope you liked this video. Please subscribe and let me know in the comments what video you want to see next. See you in the next one, guys.